She strutted through my front gate like she owned the damn place, flip-flops smacking against her calloused feet, clipboard in hand, and a scowl permanently stitched across her face. "This pool violates HOA regulations 8.4 through 8.9, she snapped without even a hello. Her voice bounced off the barn walls like it had been waiting all morning to find a victim. The kicker? I wasn't even in her HOA, never had been. Never would be. But that didn't stop Karen from marching onto my ranch like a sheriff from a spaghetti western, ready to write citations I'd never recognize. That was the first red flag. The second? She had brought an audience 3 of her HOA cronies, all dressed like they were headed to war against sunscreen and freedom. And the third? She said I had 48 hours to correct the pool's orientation. Whatever the hell that meant. I stood there in my swim trunks, towel over my shoulder, still dripping from my morning laps. "You've got the wrong property," I said calmly. "This land's been in my family for 3 generations. We're not under your jurisdiction. Never have been." But Karen just laughed, eat a dry, smug laugh like she was humoring a child. "We reviewed satellite imagery. Your pool can be seen from inside HOA lines. That gives us the right to enforce aesthetic continuity. It's in the handbook." I blinked. "You mean you're regulating what people see in the distance now?" She raised an eyebrow like I was the crazy one. "It disrupts neighborhood cohesion," she hissed. "Your ranch-style cabana clashes with our Mediterranean vision." I should have just walked away, but that word cohesion set something off in me. My granddad built this place from nothing, fenced every inch by hand, and now a power-drunk neighborhood committee thought they could reach across property lines and start dictating shade umbrellas? No. Hell no. I told her again. This was private, unincorporated land outside city limits, outside HOA boundaries, fully exempt. And you know what she did? She called the sheriff, claimed community risk due to water hazard, said I was operating an unsanctioned recreational facility. The woman literally called 911 on a ranch pool that had been here since the 80s. When Deputy Hall arrived, I felt a flicker of hope. He knew me, bought hay from me last season. I explained everything, showed him the deed, the exemption letter, the zoning map with clear boundaries. Karen stood smugly nearby, arms crossed, her posse filming me like I was about to be led away in cuffs. Deputy Hall stared at the paperwork, then at her. "Ma'am, this property isn't under your HOA, you're trespassing." Her jaw dropped like he'd slapped her with a fish. "I'm the president of Willow Creek Estates," she barked. "You're allowing blight to fester next door to our homes." He raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, unless you want to be charged with harassment, I suggest you leave." But she didn't. Not yet, because Karen had a backup plan, and it involved a twist I never saw coming. The very next day, my water stopped running. My livestock troughs sat dry. The pool filtration system wheezed and died. I thought it was a pump failure until I checked the main line. Some devoted idiot had closed off my feed valve at the rural water coop junction and zip-tied it shut with a handwritten tag. Suspended pending compliance. That's when I realized it wasn't just Karen. She'd somehow roped in someone from the utility board, her cousin. Turns out, who had mistakenly flagged my property as HOA controlled due to an old annexation map. That was the moment it went from laughable to war. I called my attorney, a sharp, whiskey-voiced woman named Dana who specialized in property rights. She took one look at the documents and lit up like she'd found her birthday present. "Oh, they messed with the wrong patch of dirt," she said. Within 48 hours, we had a cease and desist drafted, certified letters sent to every HOA officer, the utility board, and Karen's cousin. But I didn't stop there. I filed for a restraining order, installed high-definition perimeter cameras, and while I waited for the court hearing, I had a 9-foot cedar sign custom built and planted right at the edge of my property line, facing her development. Burned into the wood in big bold script. Private land not subject to HOA tyranny. Karen saw it the next day. She came stomping out in her pink visor and white capris like she was going to yank the sign out with her bare hands. But this time I was ready. I hit play on the outdoor speaker system and blasted an edited clip of her 911 call. "He's got a pool," It's blue and rectangular and unsanctioned. The audio echoed over the hills like satire. Her face went purple. She screamed about defamation, threatened to sue, then realized the sign had a live feed camera embedded in the base. Every gesture, every insult, every illegal step recorded and time-stamped. She turned and stormed off, shrieking at no one in particular, leaving a cloud of dust and shame behind her. But it wasn't over, because 2 weeks later she came back. Not alone this time. She brought a code enforcement officer from a completely different county, claimed jurisdiction overlap, accused me of running an unlicensed water recreation business. And when the officer stepped 1 foot onto my land, I handed him a federal letter from the Bureau of Land Management verifying my ranch's historic easement status. His eyes widened. "You're on registered agricultural exemption?" I nodded. Since 1967. Karen looked like she'd swallowed a pine cone. She started stammering something about community cohesion, again. But the officer cut her off. "Ma'am, this land is outside your HOA if you don't leave now. I'll cite you for criminal misrepresentation and attempted property overreach." Let's just say she left. But not before screaming, "This isn't over," like a cartoon villain in a meltdown. 3 days after her latest tantrum, a letter arrived thick, self-important, and printed on Willow Creek Estate's letterhead. Inside was a final notice warning me of a $1,200 fine for non-conforming aquatic facilities. She actually listed my ranch's pool on an HOA violation ledger for a neighborhood I didn't belong to. But the best part? She CC'd the county water board, the fire marshal, and get this, the homeowner happiness oversight committee, which I was pretty sure she made up herself. At that point, I wasn't even mad anymore. I was impressed. Karen had gone full delusion with laminated force. But here's the thing about trying to control people who aren't under your thumb. Eventually, you push too far. And Karen? She didn't just push, she bulldozed. See, what she didn't know was that my ranch wasn't just a pool and some cows. I'd been running a nonprofit veterans retreat out here for years, helping former service members recover from trauma through nature, horseback therapy, and yes, swimming. My pool wasn't just a luxury. It was a lifeline for men and women who had faced darker days than Karen could ever imagine in her HOA-funded living room. And now she was threatening the man. I wasn't about to let that happen. So I brought the fight public. I called in every favor I'd earned, every friend who'd stayed at my ranch, every soldier, medic, chaplain, and firefighter who'd sat by that pool and finally exhaled for the first time in years. We made a video raw, emotional, unfiltered. Veterans holding photos of lost friends, talking about how the water helped calm the storms inside their heads. We showed Karen's letter, her voice on the 911 call, her stomping down the fence line like a mall cop on a power trip. The footage exploded online. Within 48 hours, it had 500,000 views. By day 4, local news picked it up. HOA tries to regulate pool that's not in their HOA, the headline read. Then the interviews began. I went on air, heart in throat, and told the truth. This isn't just about a pool. It's about control. It's about respect. And it's about how far some people will go to bully others under the illusion of authority. And right, the Relive on Channel 6 Karen called in. She demanded to speak. The host hesitated, but I nodded. "Let her talk," I said. The screen split, and there she was, sitting in her floral armchair, flanked by HOA binders. "You're manipulating public sentiment," she screeched. "You're exploiting veterans to avoid basic community rules." Her voice cracked. "I have authority. This is about decency." The host, stunned, asked calmly, "But ma'am, you've acknowledged that his property isn't part of your association." Karen blinked, then said something I'll never forget. "Well, if it isn't, it should be." That was the moment everything collapsed. Emails flooded in from HOA members. Apologies. Resignations. Turns out, not everyone supported Karen's private war. Several residents had tried to push her out for years, but she'd rewritten bylaw procedures and faked committee votes. One board member, Emily Vasquez, reached out privately. "She's out of control. We're done being silent. Would you be willing to speak at our next meeting? So I did. I stood in a room packed with tired homeowners and trembling paper cups of cheap coffee. Karen was there too smug, arms crossed, waiting for me to lose my cool. Instead, I brought someone else. Corporal Derek Ramos, Marine, PTSD survivor, swam at my ranch 3 times a week. He walked up with his cane, looked Karen dead in the eye and said, "Ma'am, your decorative preferences nearly cost me my last safe place. My son plays in that pool. That water keeps me from putting a gun in my mouth some nights. You tried to take that from me over tiles and sight lines. You could have heard a pin drop." Karen didn't say a word. She just stood up, grabbed her binder, and left. The board unanimously voted to suspend her. Then, weeks later, with more footage coming out and a formal petition circulating, the county issued a ruling. Willow Creek Estates was to be audited for leadership fraud and abuse of jurisdiction. Karen's bylaws? Illegal. Her fines? Voided. Her cousin at the utility board? Fired. Her made-up committee? Dissolved. But I wasn't finished. I had one last card to play. With community support, I filed for a permanent court order banning Karen from setting foot on my land or contacting my nonprofit in any way. And as icing on the cake, I filed a small claims suit for emotional distress and attempted interference with a medical rehabilitation program. We won. The judge awarded symbolic damages of $1.00, which I had minted into a plaque that now hangs on the pool cabana. It reads, "Paid in full by Karen's ego." The court order included a clause. Karen was prohibited from interfering with, entering, or attempting to regulate any water-based structure or activity on this property. In effect, we banned her from water itself. A poetic, fitting consequence for a woman who weaponized pool rules like they were commandments from heaven. Today, the pool is thriving. The veterans still come. The horses still roam. And every time I hear the soft ripple of water on a quiet afternoon, I smile knowing Karen can't even look in its direction without remembering she lost. Not just the fight, but the illusion of power she clung to. So if you ever feel like you're being backed into a corner by someone who doesn't understand boundaries, remember this. Just because they say it loudly doesn't make it law. And sometimes the best way to win is not to yell louder but to prove, calmly and publicly, that they're wrong. Was I too harsh? Too patient? Too public? You tell me.